Good afternoon to Guyana and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us this week for another informative week, a week where we continue to teach you regarding what's happening with our new government. Of course, it is still relatively new government. It will probably be a new government for the next year or so, and they're making moves to better the lives of Guyanese people. Of course, as you know, we have always supported this first place out there by the President of the Republic of Guyana. Of course, our phrase is a good life for our Guyanese. So I can tell you that the new government, the APNU AFC government, is well on its way to providing a good life for our Guyanese. This week, I continue to profile and interview some of the new government ministers. Of course, I don't only have government ministers on this week. As you know, I would have previously promised you to take a break from government ministers and deal with persons such as advisors. As you know, government has more than one level. It's not only about the minister, it's not only about the president, it's not only about the prime minister, but everyone who is involved in making the lives of Guyanese better. Today, I am happy to have with me Mr. Keith Scott, actually Minister Keith Scott. He is the minister within the Ministry of Communications, and he is also the director within the Ministry of Communities, actually, and he's also the director of housing. Also expected to drop by is Ms. Cathy Hughes. She is the Minister of Tourism. I'm trusting that she'll be able to make it. As you know, Georgetown is in a very messy state at this point because we've had some serious rain in the last few hours or so, and that is, in a sense, keeping some people where they are. Persons don't want to necessarily move around in flood waters. Also coming up on today's program, as I said, we're also taking a break from profiling and interviewing ministers. We'll have Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn. As you probably can recall, she has recently gained an award, and a national award, of course, that was given by the President, His Excellency President David Granger, and she holds the award, the Cacique's Crown of Honor. So a little bit later on in the program, I will be talking to her. But for now, let's get to housing. On last week's program, it is good that you were able to have some of your questions answered regarding the housing sector and what's happening in the housing department. Of course, as you can recall, Minister Ali was here and she was able to answer your questions. But today we have, for now I'll call him the man of the hour, Minister Keith Scott, and he's here to tell you about his work thus far regarding the housing sector and what Guyanese can expect from him and this ministry. Of course, the ministry is probably a new one to him. Welcome, Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much, Malika. I'm happy to be on this program and may I take this opportunity to thank listeners and those viewers for the support we at APNU AFC received during the elections, and also to remind them that as your servants, you are here only to make sure that we can deliver on our promises of a better life for all Guyanese.
Okay. Thus far, you've done a lot of meeting and greeting. Let's talk about the situation it's no longer a separate ministry. Of course, it would have been the Ministry of Housing. But let's talk about what's happening in the Department of Housing now in terms of the staff not necessarily warming up, but becoming comfortable with the new administration and the type of support that we've been getting thus far.
It was amazing. It's almost unbelievable. When I came here, there was a certain air of apprehension and not knowing what to expect. But having interacted with the staff from the day I was there to now, I have seen a transformation from one of fear, uncertainty, to one of absolute friendliness, confidence, and the desire to share the very dream that we have been elected to bring into reality. We are seeing people as staff that are now smiling, and even the public is reacting in a positive way towards that new aura of confidence and the desire to make sure that the public is well served.
What does this new portfolio mean for Keith Scott?
This new portfolio gives me an opportunity to finally play a more meaningful role in life, to serve people. I have spent all my life being a servant of the people, but this elevation to this new office allows me even with the scope to be able to deliver on my dreams for the society, that one day we can have the delivery of not only that houses for all, but a good life in a rounded way for people, their wives, husbands, and children.
Alright. Let's talk about the housing situation in Guyana. First off, before we even talk about your plans, the organization's plans, and of course, viewers, when I say the organization, I mean the Central Housing and Planning Authority's plans. Before we talk about your organization, the organization's plans going forward for our people, what is the most striking thing for you at this time regarding problems that many of our citizens, many of Guyanese residents would have been complaining about regarding their housing situation?
What I have found is that there's an insatiable desire for Guyanese to own their own places. Whether it's a house or whether it's a house lot, whether they themselves build it to suit their dreams or what, but that desire for a spot, a piece of earth is extremely strong, and so it's right throughout the country. Our position then is to make sure that we can afford people, deliver to people an affordable spot, either a house or a house lot, so that they can then get a chance to realize their dreams. And in that sense, our ministry has sharing this very dream, have become totally engrossed and enthusiastic to make sure that we can do that exercise. In that sense, Malika, what I've been doing is reorganizing what we found. We found initially, when we entered the power, a mindset that all that people can expect or have delivered to them was a house lot. We recognize that many people, even though they do, are some who want a house lot, there are many who want to be able to get an affordable house. We have taken those type of desires and have developed a holistic kind of concept whereby APNU, AFC government will be delivering not just a house, but an entire community of people, and a community where all within that parameter can live together as not only a family, but as a cohesive community. What I mean by that is that we're no longer emphasizing the ownership of a spot or house lot or a house alone, but we want to encourage people to see themselves as part of a developing community that embraces a set of houses with proper infrastructure, with amenities like schools, daycare centers, maybe in some cases as police outposts, and a church, pharmacies, and so you have almost a self-contained community within a catchment area that persons will no longer, as time goes by, find the need to travel great distances to go to school, great distances to go to work, because it will be encouraging the development of workplaces and so on within that catchment area.
Let me just jump in here. When you're talking, and I'm getting some ideas, and I'm getting a picture, an image, if you want to call it that. The way that you're speaking, I'm seeing or I'm thinking gated communities. In Guyana, when we hear about and we think about gated communities, we think about all of those dollar signs that come before that proposed plan. How will you make it affordable for Guyanese?
Well, I'm not thinking about gated communities in first, but I could also understand you're seeing it in that way, and I fully well understand that. Gated communities will probably be the part where we allot space to developers. Mm-hmm. They will then tend to go towards gated communities, and we'll have to live with that. However, our biggest focus will be making houses for people of the lower and middle income primarily. And in that sense, this is why we're developing a new concept where a person who comes from a middle income must not see just a house in an unregulated environment, but it will be open. Let us say you're driving a highway and then you have a road that branches off. When you branch off on that road, you open into a dream, into a wide expanse of communities, houses and these different amenities in that area, there's going to naturally be interconnection by means of roads to other satellite areas like other communities and so on. For example, if you were to think in terms of let us say, New York, or New Jersey, you have areas where you branch off from roads into like a township. That is by itself, but it's still, you can just drive another mile or two to another one like itself. And in that sense, while they're more or less tend to be self-contained, they're not gated, but they still have a community spirit that exists within that environment. They'll have display fields and their grounds and so on. Our job is to develop the land, make the infrastructure as less cost effective as it would have been in the past, bring down the costs with modern types of engineering structures that you can put in place, like type of designs like concrete or not concrete drains and so on. So each person or within that catchment will be given all the necessary amenities within that same time, but yet at the same time affordable.
How long do you think it will take to get such a project going, where it could eventually trickle down to ordinary people benefiting? Because as we speak, there are persons with lots of complaints who are saying that, look, their applications have been with the Ministry of Housing. Obviously, but that would have been prior to this government taking office. Their applications would have been with the Ministry of Housing, the Department of Housing, and no call, or they get a call and they're told that this is what is allotted to them, and they have to find how much hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to develop concepts that will involve people from the bottom up. Our emphasis is basically trying to meet the needs of the poor person and the middle income person without neglecting those who can afford to walk off the road and buy a house lot or a house for X $million. That they will tend to go towards the developers. But our emphasis is looking after those persons. At the moment, you can get the kind of houses we have, what you call turnkey houses, we are now having built at Providence and Perseverance on the East Bank. Those houses cost $4.9 million. A person is asked to pay down $500,000, and they make an arrangement with the bank who facilitates the mortgage arrangement, and they can pay to the bank all the way. But we think even beyond that, because not everybody would want a house, or a turnkey house. We are thinking in terms of using those persons who had applications in for a long time, who had applied for house lots. We are also going to make sure that we allocate those existing lots and that we had that in different parts of the country that they had applied for. We're going to make sure we develop that. To that end, I'm trying to restructure the engineering department where the engineers can design new type of houses that will meet the various needs of the people, as well as even the infrastructure. I've even gone to the point where I have established engineering unit, and I have an advisor by the name of Charles Series, who I have put in charge of that, and he is looking into bringing in affordable management of roads, water, lights, in a way that the overall cost to the employee, because all these things come at a cost. But we are trying our best to use new engineering techniques to bring down that level of cost. The cost of stone in Guyana, which is being sold for as high as $60,000 and $70,000 plus, we are planning to bring that down. And even if when we speak to the employers or the people who do look after stones, like Tulsi and others, if they don't want to bring the stone down to our specifications, we may have to even import stone temporarily until we can come to an accommodation with them. But we intend to use every means in bringing down cost of wood, cost of things to the man at the bottom will not have a hard time. We even have gone further besides the engineering the aspect. I had a seminar last week at the Young Convention Center, whereby we brought all the engineers together, water, housing, and so on, so that they can interact and start to think as a unit, that where that new holistic society that we're trying to have established will have the resources of them all being pulled together, so that we can have a proper one approach to the society. And it's a new concept, and they're all very enthusiastic.
All right, let's focus a little more on the turnkey houses. That's what you call it, yes, the turnkey houses. Is this an APNU AFC government initiative, or is it remnants of what was left by the PPPC that you're now taking to try to make something productive out of it?
Well, I came and I met it. The PPP government had started to establish these turnkey houses. They had gone as far as constructing about 200 or close to 200. And our idea is to improve on that. We need to have, hopefully by the end of 5 years, about 4,000 families housed, which will probably cover about 16,000 people in all. So we like the idea, and we are improving on it. This is where the engineers are engaged in redesigning some of the houses, because we've had some complaints that houses that Providence were cracking and so, and that I have had our engineers address that, because there was a structural problem with that, and whereby houses, the foundations were not correctly put down, because there was an absence of quantities being checked properly, absence of QSs and so on. We have addressed that, and we are to that. Those who have had houses that have cracked, we are within the contract, in terms of the contract, within 1 year, we ourselves at the ministry have repaired or is engaging in repairing those foundation problems. So, but only in that area that have had the problem. The new area at Perseverance, which you're talking about, that I have visited it, and I've seen that they have put down proper structures for the foundation, and the people who have now accessed it and living there, they have expressed satisfaction with what they've gotten. We intend to also speed up the process where we can get distributed and finish as many houses as we could within this year. For between now and the year end, for example, I intend to have at least another 150 houses completed.
You did talk about getting advice and bringing in various engineers and so on. You specifically mentioned Mr. Charles Series and so on. Are you going to also work with engineers and other professionals who work in basically the same field? Will you be working with those persons you would have met in the ministry, or are you going to be seeking new staff, if you want to call it that?
I believe knowledge must always be shared, and we must always make every effort to access every area of knowledge. Every engineer or any expert that returns to Guyana or even overseas, if they can find ways by means of technology helping us, we are open to receiving all help. And even our engineers, they have to have an open mind. If they didn't have it before, now we're going to train them in such a way that they can act and interact with people both locally and overseas, because we need every single means of accessing new technology.
All right. Let's talk about the public now, meeting with the public. We know it is not necessarily, especially in Guyana's terms of government, in the way Guyana government operates, we know that it's not necessarily customary for people to be able to see ministers directly on a daily basis. But currently there are people out there who are complaining that they have these letters, the Ministry of Housing has not contacted them, they have so many problems and they want to see the minister. Are you at any time, whether it be yourself, your permanent secretary, or any other person you may authorize, are you making provisions in whereby the public can go face to face with you?
That's a beautiful question you just asked, Malika, and I'm very happy to answer it. You will, first of all, you have to bear in mind that any public office, as well as any public officer, will always have to get complaints, no matter how well you try to please people. But by the very act of complaining, it helps us to improve. So I, for example, am one person who appreciates any form of complaints that can be leveled against me or my people. We take it seriously. If we see any letter in the papers, we are going to listen to it and take it and use that to improve whatever we can use to help us become better servants of the people. Now, having said that, I have already initiated and began the meet the people process. I had Wednesday gone, I've met people from 9 until 5 minutes to 4 without a break. We didn't even stop for lunch. I had my staff there, and we worked right through, meeting with the members of the public. And it was a totally beautiful experience, revealing. And I can say to you, from what people said to us, those who we met were left very satisfied. We met over 66 persons at the then time, and we were able to distribute about 40 house lots and about 13 or more houses to them. And those who had other problems, for example, questions with the bank and with the getting the registry to cooperate with them, we have promised the bank, we have signed some letters of assurance. The banks, I have intentions of meeting with the bankers to review the process at which they're helping poor people in terms of whether they can adjust the bank rates, whether they can lengthen the time allotted for them for the payment period. And I'm also I've already tasked my people at my officers to approach the registry itself to see if they can find a way of speeding up the process of the signing of those lease agreed. And so because that itself has slowed down or been able to get them to access the loans at the bank. But with dialogue, we feel that process, once it's increased, those things are signed off faster, we will be in a position to deliver to people in a faster way their house lots and their transports and so on.
I'm happy, and I'm sure that the public, before I continue, viewers, unfortunately, because of what's happening today, so many things happening, we're not going to be able to take your phone calls, but I'm trusting that thus far Minister Scott would have been able to answer the majority of the questions that you would have posed since last week. But let's get back to this situation about the bank. I'm happy that you talked about that. How much can you really do to get the banks to be a little more cooperative with citizens who want to acquire house lots, who want to acquire homes? And in terms of eligibility, how will you deal with that? How will your ministry deal with that?
Well, first of all, the banks themselves are governed by banking laws, and in terms of how far they can allow a rescheduling of those persons who may have difficulties in meeting their obligations to the mortgage. This is why, at this point of time, I definitely miss the old-time Guyana Mortgage Finance Bank, and maybe I may have to approach, together with my other colleagues, Minister Don Hastings and Minister Ronald Bulkan, we will have to sit down and talk with the bankers, and to see if we can get around to having that level of mortgage ease. If not, we can also think in terms of trying to encourage the recreation of a mortgage finance bank, which was really very helpful to people who are poor, and we're going to go that way. In addition to just thinking about mortgages, there are other persons who, no matter how many houses you offer them, will always have that desire to build their own homes. Those persons we also have to encourage, because not everybody will have money, but there's something that they can use that you call sweat capital. That we can give them the land, and by means of self-help, together with our giving them means of the materials, their actual sweat or labor is itself a capital, which takes up that problem in terms of accessing the homes. So we're looking at a variety of options. Sweat capital as one way, rental purchase of a house, as in the old time days when you had housings, you go and live in a house, you pay rent, and then later it becomes yours. In some cases, as low as $1. We feel that that's a very good way to helping those persons who will not be able to maybe even access a mortgage. We will provide that kind of homes, and they'll be able to use a rental purchase agreement, and one day that becomes theirs. There's also another one where we can just provide a startup house, and they themselves will then go in and complete the houses. So we're looking at a variety of types of houses that everybody, regardless of those who have money, those who are in a better off position, and even those who are in a higher position, will get a house of their own, which means that at the end of 5 years, APNU, AFC government will be in a position to deliver on our promises of houses for all, and in a community where they can see the dream of a better life for all.
Okay, sound like you really have it planned. I know I'm trying to squeeze as much as I possibly can, because as I speak to you, I'm trying to get into the heads of the viewers at home. Let's talk about non-governmental organizations. Any plans, and I don't want to, of course, for obvious reasons, I don't want to specifically name any of the non-governmental organizations on this program at this point, but any plans to work along with non-governmental organizations that might be into providing homes for the less fortunate, especially persons who may have lost their homes via fire or whatever other disaster?
Well, you said you wouldn't want to call names because you don't want to sound as if you're creating an advertising spot.
Exactly.
So I will also avoid calling names. But let us say it as a matter of policy. We are open to working along with all and any non-governmental organization that would want to come on board to help us to deliver houses for the poor and as they see fit. If they come to us, or if we have any talk with them, we are prepared to accommodate them to help us. That same thing goes for developers. I saw a preponderance of the wrong type of people, or to just one set of developers. I want to have a wider variety of developers, so that the more the competition, the lower will be the cost to even those persons who can afford and to have houses built for them. So even those new developers, I'm taking this opportunity to encourage them to come on board, talk to us, and we will going to try our best to make land available, not only in Georgetown, not only in East Bank, but in a way to expand our reach throughout not only the coast, but the hinterland as well as the development of the new townships that are on stream that the president has said he wants to see.
All right, finally, before I let you go, Minister Scott, you did say a lot about your plans, the process in terms of getting to the residents regarding providing homes and providing houses for our citizens. Any specific plan for squatters? Because squatters would have always been an issue in our society. Any specific plans to try to relieve them of their situation?
Yes, Malika. Squatters, first of all, we do not, and the law does not encourage squatting. Squatting is illegal, and we want people to understand you're engaging in an illegal activity, and our government cannot afford to be seen condoning any illegality in any form whatsoever. However, the reality of years is that they have been squatting, and those areas that have had some squatting for a little while now, we are in the process of regularizing some of them. But we are not going to encourage any new squatting areas. To that end, I'm glad you asked me this. We have already said and put out a release that those persons who have recently began to go on lands and start to squat, including the embankments in different areas like Zilot, like Borisiri, and so on. We are asking right now through this program, I take this opportunity to ask you to stop, to cease it, and I shall be visiting each of those squatting areas to speak one-on-one with you, to encourage you to come into us, to apply, and to have your name as on part of our register. In the meantime, I can promise you, I will not tolerate any squatting, and I will have that enforced with full vigor.
One of the things I didn't ask you about, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that before you leave, sir. You recently, I think it was yesterday, you would have met with, I think it's AHNL Kisoon. Would you like to talk a bit about your meeting, depending on how much you can reveal to the public at this time?
Well, Mr. Kisoon of AHNL Kisoon Enterprises paid me a courtesy call, and he gave me some of his history that in the past he built houses for his workers, and he's offering his skills and his expertise and maybe even some of his assets to help to construct and to encourage us to construct houses for his employees. What I made clear to him is that we're not going to give him a land en bloc, but wherever they are, it is like everybody else, land that's available for individuals, we will take on board his employees that he brings apply, and they will be given the houses or the house lots. He, at that point of time, has offered that he will help them with their houses and construction, and he's going to help us with his expertise in other words, how to bring down costs, how to help with construction in terms of what type of material is best suited and so on. So we do welcome his interventions, and we are also encouraging other entrepreneurs to come on board and let us see how together we can all take our country forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Minister Scott, he is the minister within the Ministry of Communities, and of course he's also the Director of Housing at the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank you, and I enjoy being here, and I enjoy having an opportunity to speak and to interact with the public, and I look forward to seeing more of you each Wednesday at the ministry with me, one-on-one. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, sir. Viewers, of course, that would have been well, it's not brief. It was intended to be a brief interview with Minister Scott, but of course he was gracious enough to oblige me to have him on longer. Of course, I did apologize to you earlier for not taking your calls, but you did get a chance last week to pose some of those questions to the minister we had on last week, who was able to respond to many of your questions. So unfortunately, I'm not going to open the phone lines today. The next person I will be interviewing today, of course, as I did talk about a little bit about her early on in the program, she is Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn. And of course, she's currently one of the awardees. She was recently awarded, and I'll just give you some background before I chat with her. I'll give you some background to exactly what it is that we're talking about. I did promise you that we're not only going to be profiling and interviewing ministers, but other persons who are involved in government and persons who would have been involved in previous government. So that because it is time that Guyana understands. Someone, I think it's one of the philosophers once said that in order to know where you are going, you should know where you came from. So I think it is time for us to let some of you know exactly what would have happened in the past in terms of who would have been some of our country's most influential persons, especially our young people. So before I talk to, as we call her, Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn, some of us call her Auntie Yvonne, before I talk to her, I'll just give you some background in terms of the award that she would have recently received and general awards in Guyana. The orders, decorations, and medals of Guyana were established after Guyana gained independence from the United Kingdom. In 1970, Guyana became a republic and established its first 2 national awards under the Constitution of the Orders of Guyana. In 1976, the Constitution of the Orders of Guyana was amended to add a 3rd national award. The first appointments to the Orders of Guyana came in 1970 and were presented through 2002. Of course, that's until 2002. After a period of several years, the first new appointments were made in 2011. New appointments were made on the anniversary of the independence of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana by the President of Guyana, acting in his capacity as the Chancellor of the Orders of Guyana. This tradition of appointing awards was brought back on the 26th of May 2015 by the 8th Executive President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. One of the national awards is the Cacique's Crown of Honor, otherwise known as the CCH. The Cacique's Crown of Honor is the 2nd highest award in the Order of Service of Guyana. It is limited to 50 citizens of Guyana. It may be awarded to any citizen of Guyana who has rendered service of an exceptionally high quality beyond the normal call of duty in the public service, social and voluntary services, industry or trade unions, or in any other area of public service, or achieved excellence of national or international standing and recognition in the arts, professions, sciences, or sport, or in any other area of activity. It may also be awarded to institutions, organizations, corporations, or a group of people who have made substantial contributions to the national economy for achievements of a significant advance resulting in increased efficiency, for applying technology to production or development process in industry, or other significant achievements and contributions to national development. The President awarded the Cacique Crown of Honor to 10 citizens in 1970 and 2 citizens every year after that, as long as the vacancy exists. This year, 2015, 9 persons were awarded the Cacique's Crown of Honor. And I am happy to say that one of the 9 persons, I have her on the program today. This is her first time coming on Facing the Nation, and this is my first time interviewing her, at least live, of course. Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn. She's a former teacher, former Minister of the Government, and Consul General that's in New York. And if I have gone wrong in any of those things that I've introduced her as, she will certainly tell me. Comrade Ben, welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Malika. Nice of you to have me.
It really is my pleasure. And of course, viewers, I should also emphasize that her award is for long, dedicated, and outstanding service in the fields of education and politics as a Minister of the Government and in the Guyana Foreign Service. And you'll hear all about that today. First off, Comrade Ben, you're a well-achieved woman in our society today. I know many of our persons, in terms of political women, persons working in the political field would have also looked up to you. First off, before we even talk about that, before we even talk about Yvonne Harewood-Benn setting the trend and the pace to be a good role model, how does it feel to be a national awardee, ma'am?
As you can expect, it feels very good. You know, Malika, work is there to be done. But while you're working, there's work and you do it. But I must tell you that it feels good to be appreciated, and that people thought that you did well.
Okay.
It is a good feeling.
Wonderful. What advice would you give to young persons, young women especially, myself, who may want to aspire to your level of greatness at this time? Because really and truly, it is a different time from when you would have done all of this work, from when you would have served as minister, from when you were a teacher, compared to now. Life is different, and I would want to think that it's a little more challenging for us now. What advice would you give to young women like myself and the others out there, especially in the political field?
Malika, I know and I accept that times have changed.
Okay.
But there are some bedrock values that never change. And I would like to indicate that service, think of service. It's not the honor. The honor comes afterwards. But you think of service. Think of being a contributing citizen in whatever way you can. And I think it will come. You have to have that as a goal. I am here as a person. I have certain talents. How can I make use of them to benefit myself, my community, my country? You ask yourself those questions. Sometimes the opportunity comes without you're even asking, and it's there. But I believe in service. You're there to serve, to give of your best, whatever you have to do. That is what I feel young people must appreciate. That it doesn't always come as you expect, but it comes. It does come.
Are you of the view that maybe, and I would really like a better phrase here, but are you of the view that maybe in your time, young people were given a greater opportunity to do good things?
I'm not so sure about that, you know. In very many instances, you make your opportunity. For instance, I don't know if you know this, but I grew up on a sugar estate with all that entails. So it wasn't much of a beginning, but by support of people, opportunities which were there, you made the best of it. But I don't know that young people had a better chance then. I know they have more challenges now. For instance, when I was growing up, drugs were, castor oil and Cenopod and so on. We had never heard of cocaine and all the other things, crack. So there are many more opportunities now for young people, but there are also many challenges. And the problem is, how do you make the choice? What do you opt for? What do you need in order to make the best use of the opportunities and try to avoid some of the challenges that are there? Many more than when I was growing up. I mean, that's one thing that is very, very clear.
Okay.
You have opportunities, but you have tremendous challenges as well.
Okay.
And the problem is making the choice, the right choice.
All right.
Right choice. There are people who will always support young people. I think so. My time, your time, always.
All right.
But, the onus is on the young person to make the best use of the possibilities and the opportunities.
How did growing up on a sugar estate contribute to who Yvonne Harewood-Benn is today?
Oh, growing up in a sugar estate, I lived in what people used to call Bajan Quarter. My parents are Barbadians.
Okay.
They came here along with many other Barbadians to work on the sugar estates. Or the other name was Nigger Yard.
Okay.
You never thought of it as, anything that was controversial.
Sure,
That's
yes.
where you lived. And I lived in a mixed community. I went to a mixed school. Some of my best friends were girls like Kausila and so on that I went to school with. So growing up in a sugar estate was very normal to us. You went to school, you walked from school 4 times a day and so on. You went and you swam in the aqueduct, though we used to call it Archieduct in those days, I don't know why. But it was pleasant growing up. But I must tell you that I had the support of teachers. That is why I'm so keen on education. Education is what has brought me from Bajan Quarter to where I am now. Education, the support of my parents, the support of my teachers. And since I'm a believer, my faith in God.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Before we come back to your work as a teacher, your work in politics, and your work as a consul general to New York, you just mentioned the fact that you did grow up in a mixed situation, mixed communities, mixture. Given that, how do you now deal with what we seem to have in our culture now? It's a situation in Guyana where oftentimes just before elections, this surge of racist comments and these things come up, and then you even hear about it a little while after the elections would have passed. How do you deal with that? How does that even affect you now?
It really hurts. Because growing up, we didn't have that. All of us were the same. We were there, blacks and Indians, on the one side, and you had the overseers and so on the other side. And I can't remember any overt incident at all. At all. And even during the troubles of the 60s, Skeldon was one, that's where I was born. Skeldon was one estate that stood out. They didn't have the kind of mayhem that existed in the other estates. So I grew up in a community that can't understand this foolishness, if you want to call it that, you know? It's really worrying that people will use your race to do not so nice things.
Your advice on how Guyana, especially young people, can rise above it, because the fact is, we often say, and we said it a lot during the campaign, that a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, 18-year-old may not be interested in race. They have Indo-Guyanese have friends who are Afro-Guyanese and vice versa, and even Amerindian Guyanese.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sometimes they go home to grandparents who still remember this thing about race. How would you advise all of our people, not only young people, to now, in this time, in this new government, in this new era, rise above racism?
I don't know. You go back to education. You know, you have to start early to indicate to people that it's a human race. Education is going to help a lot. And our government, I know, is going to be fair, and that will also help. I think when they're choosing things to do, I know that there will be no racial bias. They're going to do what is right for the country. And, you know, that gives me hope that education, proper governance will help in this situation. I was very glad to hear Minister Amna Ali talk of the efforts that she will be making to bring it about. It has to be something deliberate. We can't leave it to chance, because there are too many people who feel that having a race problem is a good thing. So therefore we have to have deliberate measures to counter that. Yeah?
All right. Yvonne Harewood-Benn, the educator, the teacher. And I think I would like to tell people from now on, this is my favorite side of Yvonne Harewood-Benn. I can always count on going in the office after a program, whether it be after a live program or a simple interview, and getting a phone call. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time because I don't think I'm that bad. But every now and again, and I will get a phone call, and she would say, Malika, honey, Malika, dear, the word is not this. The word is... And I mean, not everybody can appreciate that. I really do appreciate that, because it serves to better me. And of course, at the same time, every time you come on television, wherever it is, you're helping to teach the public. So let's talk about Yvonne Harewood-Benn, the teacher, and you know, strides and efforts that you would have made, and how you got into teaching in the first place.
When I left high school, a long time ago, I could have gone into nursing or teaching, or I could have gone abroad, as some of my friends did, to study. But I didn't have the money to study. So I went into teaching. And I found that I liked it. For the princely sum of $65 a month, that was my first salary. But I had a very good headmaster. His name, he's dead now, Bennett Ragnaud.
Okay.
And he was a good role model, excellent role model. And as a teacher, you got a sense of achievement when the children in your care achieved something, and you felt that you were helping to build this person, to make this person. I used to teach kindergarten. They couldn't read or write. So you can imagine when they left and they could read and write, how you felt. You felt that you were doing something that was useful and necessary. As I said, I taught from infant. I also did a stint at UG, so that's tertiary. Not so long. I think it was only a term, then I left. But teaching all the grades, high school, elementary school, it really was a vocation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, really. In fact, I still do a little teaching, not much, just somebody needs some help,
Yes.
I help, and so on. And when I look around and I see some of my old students, I do feel good. Whenever I meet Beverly Harper, she was one of my students, and a few others. Some are still around, but most of them, unfortunately, have left the country and gone away. But teaching, I taught for nearly 30 years. Yes.
Okay. Comrade Ben, why has our education system, especially when it comes to simple reading, writing, and counting, because we have a serious problem there, why has our education system deteriorated in the last few decades or so?
Malika, I really don't know, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't want to say they were bad teachers or so on, but what can you say? Why has it deteriorated? Because enough attention, the correct kind of attention, wasn't paid to it. That's all I can think of. In my day, and perhaps to some extent earlier too, education was a means of upward mobility. You went to school, you learned because you wanted to better yourself, and you felt that you were told, you were shown that was the way. Get a good education and you're fit for life, you're set for life. That doesn't happen now. And that, I think, is a stage that somehow we have to get back to, that education is what is needed to be really free and to be a contributing citizen. Education has got to take that place. I was happy to hear Minister Roop Narayan say that he's hoping that teachers and teaching will, again, get the kind of recognition and support that is needed. Long ago, a teacher, you didn't earn a lot of money, but there was tremendous respect for you as a teacher.
And satisfaction in doing it, I guess.
Right. Up to now, there are some people at Scale who call me Teacher Yvonne, and I feel good. Big men, Teacher Yvonne. It's governance. You have to put in the correct kinds of, I don't know if it will call for legislation, but somehow we have to make education premium again.
Okay.
And I'm very happy when I hear my president talk of trying to organize an education nation, because that is the bottom line. You need education.
Okay.
And I don't mean only academics. There are all kinds of education. You learn. At my age, I am 80.
Wow.
You never stop learning.
Oh, wow.
I'm still learning things.
Well, congratulations to that. Viewers, if you're now joining us, I'm chatting with Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn, CCH. Of course, she has recently been awarded the Cacique's Crown of Honor. I'm chatting here about her life as a teacher. Now I'm going to move on to her life as politics. I should also remind you that Comrade Ben is also a central executive member of the People's National Congress Reform. I like to remind you every single day that the People's National Congress Reform, even though that is not the government, we're still alive and well. She's also one of the prominent members on the BEST. That is the awards that are given out every year to students who would have been, some of the students actually, who would have been successful at the National Grade 6 assessment, and that too is coming up soon. I'll also try to feature some of the persons in charge of that body and also some of the students who would have done well. I'll try to have them on our program. Comrade Ben, with just about a few minutes left.
I've recently, a few months ago, been made a life member of our women's movement.
Wonderful.
You know, I used to chair the women's
Wonderful.
movement at one time.
Yes. I know she was also the one. You see, it's so many things. I can't possibly give you the fullness of this woman, this significant woman, in half hour. But as we're chatting, before we have to begin to wrap up today's program, let's talk about, I would want to call it transformation. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. Transformation from teacher into politician. And of course, that eventually propelled you to minister. Let's talk a bit about that.
Well, after I came from university, I got a job teaching at my alma mater, Bishop's High School.
Yeah.
Well, I worked there for a few years, and then an opportunity came and I went to Linden to head Watuka Day School.
Okay.
And it's from there that somehow I always tell people that I got drawn in by my left foot, because there was never any thought in my mind. I knew I was a teacher, I was going to live out my life as a teacher and so on, but an opportunity came and I was asked, and with some measure of reluctance, because that was not in my mind at all. I was a teacher, how come? But I tried it, and that's what I tell young people, give it a try. You know, don't say, well, no, I can't at all. You never know. And I quite, got to like it. It was, in a sense, doing the same kind of thing, but for a lot more people. Many more people you were able to serve, many more people you were able to help, and so on and so on. I quite liked it afterwards. That's how I came in. Not sort of deliberately, more or less accidentally, because it wasn't in my mind.
Okay, so
I was asked to be regional chairman of Linden, and from there, then, I went abroad to be consul general.
What was that experience like?
At first, it was a bit, maybe challenging is the word, because that was when our economy was
Shaky.
not doing so well. And we had one or two other setbacks. So the climate over there was not as warm as, say, last week when Minister Harman, not at all.
Yes.
And you had to work. You had to work.
In a sense,
to try
earn your
and get
keeps.
them. With the help of some people, actually, you may know Dr. Rudder. She was one of the
Yes.
employees at the consulate where I was. She and one or two others, we got together and started what we call cottage meetings. Went around to the tri-state area, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. And you knew somebody, you said, look, invite 12 people. And we went and we spoke all over. And I think by the end, people understood a lot more about what we were trying to do. And as a result, their opinions changed in some respects. So that I consider something that was done that needed to be done.
Okay, all right.
I still have, in fact, one of the employees called me only last night from Atlanta to say that she's got the telephone of another one who wants to talk to me. It's good.
Unfortunately, it saddens me today, particularly today, that I have to bring the program to an end because we're almost out of time. But just at about 60 seconds, Comrade Ben, just in 60 seconds, as an influential woman, not only in the People's National Congress reform, of course, now with the partnership, a Partnership for National Unity, and the government, a Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change. What are you expecting from, and here I'm going to focus on not only our female ministers, but female potential role models and influential, who should be influential in our society. What are you expecting them to teach our nation, especially the young women of our nation?
The importance of service. You're not there because it's your right. It's a privilege. And consider it like that, you can't go wrong. Consider it like that, you can't go wrong. And, the usual bedrock values, honesty, integrity, and so on. You can't go wrong.
Okay.
They say glory follows virtue as if it were a shadow. I like to think that.
I'll have to remember that.
Yes, I think it was Cicero, Latin, Roman. So remember that. But Remember, you're there to serve.
To serve.
And that helps.
Okay.
It's a privilege. Count it like that. And you can't go wrong when you consider that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And it has certainly been a privilege having you on our program for the first time. And of course, this will not be the last time because I'm going to try to seek her out to have her on. Again, of course, Comrade Yvonne Harewood-Benn, CCH. And of course, CCH is the Cacique's Crown of Honor. She's one of the awardees for the 2015 National Awards handed out by His Excellency, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. This has been another program of Facing the Nation. Once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Comrade Ben for being here, to also thank the minister within the Ministry of Communities, and he's also the Director of Housing, Mr. Keith Scott.
Thank you very much, Malika. I forgot a very important part of my life, my family. They have helped me significantly. My son, my nieces, my nephew, my brother. They have all, the family, and they rally around you. So in everything, I have to give them thanks as well.
Wonderful. You can't go wrong without them,
Yeah.
without the supportive family. Viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. I am Malika Ramsey. Do join us again next time. Of course, be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.